Yeah, there's it's so funny when you talk about this like a girl ad. I didn't find it offensive, but I'm the father of 2 daughters. And as I mentioned, I'll say this again. I said it earlier today. We raised them as boys. So maybe that's why I didn't find the ad offensive. News Radio 600 Kogo. But I do, the funny part is I did research on this yesterday. I started looking and said, yeah, there is a war on men. Statistically, empirically. And let me give you a couple of things I found. And I mentioned, the criminal system. Men receive far longer and stricter sentences than women for equivalent crimes. Family courts side with women 4/5 of the time. Child benefits always goes to a woman. Car insurance is legally allowed to be biased against men, but no other insurance is biased against women. I mean, there's education grants. There's research showing that women have it better off in those types of things. And it started making me think, well, is that like reparations? Sort of. Well, then I read this article, which I thought was just fantastic. And and of course, we're talking about the ad that was supposed to empower young girls everywhere was quickly turning into an unfortunate joke. So during the Super Bowl yesterday, Always, which is a female product, premiered its Like a Girl commercial, which featured 3 women, a man and a boy, illustrating the insulting and stereotypical ways that girls run and throw and fight. And when young girls were asked to run and throw and fight like a girl, so to speak, they showed just how strong and powerful girls can be. And, the goal was to turn the phrase, as I've mentioned, as something inspirational. Well, Twitter users took to the internet because they really did use a little boy as a sacrificial lamb in the thing, which was sort of ridiculous. So I read this article, which I thought was fantastic. And the title of the article by Leslie Eastman says, "I'm apologizing, #like a girl, for Super Bowl ads, #war on men." And she joins us here in News Radio 600 Kogo. Leslie, fantastic job, by the way, on this article. I was so entertained, especially when I wasn't on your side of the argument until I read your article.
Okay, Sully, I can't thank you enough for the kind of promotion and discussion you're leading today on my humble little rant.
You moved my needle. I mean, you really moved my needle because I am the father of 2 girls, and I'd be the likely candidate who would love that commercial. But after reading your perspective, I started rolling my eyes, going, "Oh, brother, she's right." So why don't you can explain it much better than I can. Why don't you sort of tell us sort of where you sat on this as you watched this in your very living room?
Well, let me start off with the one that I found most offensive and really triggered my response. And that was Sarah Silverman bending down and whispering in a new mother's ear, "I'm sorry, it's a boy."
All right, so hang on. We have that audio. I want to play that audio so people can hear that because we played it earlier. And that was as hilarious as the commercial was. That was an eye roller. Listen to what she had to say.
All clear in my figure skating basement.
Sounds great from my underground delivery room. Sorry, it's a boy.
So basically, it was an offhanded remark saying to the lady, "Sorry, it's a boy," and that got your ire along with the Like a Girl. So talk to us about sort of where you traveled from there.
Basically, I grabbed my nice microbrew from a San Diego company, took a swig, and tried to contain my head explosion.
Yeah.
I write for Legal Insurrection and also College Insurrection, and we have monitored the campus war on our young men in terms of their educational resources and now the kangaroo courts that they're being brought up on these Title IX sex harassment charges in the new campaign. And we look no further than the University of Virginia and the false accusations shutting down the Greek system there. So that's my head, where my head is at as I'm watching this commercial. I'm protective of my son and his educational rights and his right to just live his life and do the best he can do without being hindered by his maleness. So here we have a wonderfully masculine celebration in the Super Bowl, and this commercial appears, which it's not even, what could the little boy have done to be, male chauvinist pig or repressing women? It just was born. And I'm sorry, it's a boy. And my thought went immediately, if this had been a girl, the ad people who put this together would be on the apology tour today. Then they'd be falling on their swords after donating millions of dollars to girls' organizations and the feminist activist groups that would have led the social media charge against them. Instead, because it's attacking boys, we hear nothing. And to my mind, that deserved comment, because if you do not build up your clientele by tearing down another set of people, that is just not right. And I think the company who put that ad on deserved to be dinged on it. And you can consider the rest of the ad funny. And if it just clipped that, you and I would not have this discussion today.
Yeah,
but I want to stop that derogatory, take on our young boys and young men.
Leslie Eastman wrote the article, and of course she's talking specifically about the commercial with Sarah Silverman and Chelsea Handler. Of course, you know her from Chelsea lately. A couple of questions I have for you because we've had these discussions in the hallway today for you, Leslie, is just because one is pro-female, does that necessarily make them a man-hater?
Absolutely not. Like I said, if that commercial had not had that, I'm sorry, it's a boy statement, you and I, it's fine. I would have just sat there happily, eaten more of my chili, and not bothered to have posted today. But instead, and as I see the YouTube comments, more and more are coming in, also responding negatively and offended that it was insulting to our little boys.
It's in your mind, from your purview, and of course, you seem to be at the tip of the spear here on this, especially in your writings. Is there a war being waged against men, in your opinion?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think there's a war on women being waged?
No, I do not.
Same here. It's a hashtag activism. The Democrats are trying to promote a war on women. Well, I would argue that if they're trying to do that, we're more at risk at losing a lot of quality of life for our young men. So let's take a look, and if you're really interested, get involved on behalf of our young men. They're losing their sports team. They don't have the educational resources or support that our young girls do, and now they're being made comedy fodder. This needs to stop, and we need to turn and reverse the trend.
So, Leslie, let's talk about reversing that trend, because I think that's probably what's going to get us the furthest here. Once again, Leslie Eastman wrote the article that I've been referring to today and I've been talking about for the last hour or so, called "I'm Apologizing Like a Girl," hashtag for the Super Bowl ads, hashtag war on men. Is there a better way to do this? How would you do this that isn't insulting to men? In other words, how do you empower the prepubescent female, or how do you get the point across like the T-Mobile commercial without actually looking like it's a war on men?
Well, by allowing women the right to develop some sort of backbone and sense of humor. I want to harken back to the comet scientist who was made to weep after he wore, we'll say, a tasteless shirt at a press conference. The guy is a geeky scientist type. He doesn't do media like you and I might do media. Mm-hmm. So here's a comet traveling hundreds of thousands of miles away. Their equipment finally makes it to that comet. Big scientific deal. And instead of exposing our girls to the brilliance and the beauty of the science that got us there, all of a sudden social media, he's got this awful T-shirt. I'm a scientist. I'm a woman who deals with men like this all the time. You've got to teach our girls to roll with the kind of things that pass the social interaction that isn't directly offensive.
Do you think we're teaching our girls to put their dukes up unnecessarily? In other words, to automatically be offended rather than to show their own stripes?
Yes, I do. And it's the politically correct. We have to be sensitive track. That sounds good in a lecture hall. But when you're dealing with the realities of life, especially with men who strengthen each other by being hard on each other, and you got to walk into that environment and know that, and you have to be able to handle it, whether or not you're male or female.
Well, no, you're right. I mean, there's a Bible verse, Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. I mean, it is. We males tend to beat up on each other, and it's a lot of times in good fun. But that's where your lessons learned are. And of course, hopefully they're like bridges burned. You don't have to cross them one time. But the interesting part is being a father of two girls. who legitimately tried to raise them as boys because I just didn't know any other way. I love to see empowering young women, but not at the expense of being automated in terms of our being offended. Because I think that's where the danger lies. Let's automatically get our dukes up, regardless of it, because somebody's going to offend us just because we're female. I just don't think that exists, and I love what you're doing to try to quell that fever.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And, if our little girls are going to, play in the field of the science, technology, engineering, and math, they need to know how to get along with the young men, and the young men cannot be demonized for being young men. That ship has gone out of port, and we need to start worrying just as equally about the young boys who are going into college, going into high schools, and being exposed to attitudes such as, I'm sorry, it's a boy. It's got to stop. It's got to start stopping now. And by the way, T-Mobile, never buying your product.
Leslie, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work. I'm going to follow your work. I'm sure I'll have you back on.
Yeah, Reverend Legal Insurrection is the place to read. We got a lot of great people there, and they share very lively and independent opinions.
Very good. Thanks so much, Leslie. I appreciate it. Legalinsurrection.com is the name of the